I don't think enough people, when mentioning good football coaches in the Lynchburg Roanoke area, mention Jack Baker. Jack Baker has been around the Lynchburg area, Seminole District, Dogwood District. He's also been in the Roanoke area as we go towards Allegheny, and his spot now is James River, and he's also been up in Buena Vista with Perry McClure. Jack Baker, always a great guy to talk to. We talked about kids nowadays. We talked about Jack Baker's past and a lot more here on the Sports Buffet podcast. Jack Baker, head football coach in Virginia. He's been around the area, Rustburg, Nelson County, Perry McClure. Did I leave out anything?
Allegheny.
And
Sorry. Now James River.
And we're going to get to that. First off, when did Jack Baker know he wanted to become a coach?
I was a little kid. My mother laughs. She says she could see me pretending that I was a coach when I was a little kid. My dad was a coach, and he was a huge influence on my life, and his friends were coaches, and they were huge influences on my life, and I knew as a little kid that I wanted to coach. My high school coaches were people that I really looked up to, and I wanted to be like them. And when I got to college, I couldn't think of anything more than my college coaches were people that I looked up to and wanted to be like.
Talk a little bit about your playing career for people who do not know about it.
I played at James River in the late 80s and graduated in 1990. I thought I was a better football player than I was, and I thought people were missing me, and so I figured out how to get down to Fork Union and play a postgraduate year. And it was down there at Fork Union that I realized what the real football pecking order was, and I realized how good some kids were, and I ended up walking on at VMI and played at VMI then.
When you say the real football pecking order, what do you mean?
That there's some guys out there that are really, really good. My roommate at Fork Union played receiver at LSU, and the first night that we were doing some cone drills and some things like that, I watched Todd go through those cone drills, and I'm like, oh, wow. I hadn't seen anybody that good in my life, and there were 4 kids that bounced around in the NFL on that team for a couple of years. And, I hadn't been around ability like that. There were 12 or 13 guys on that team that played in the ACC. And I certainly hadn't been around that kind of ability. So I guess what I'm saying is that I realized where I fit in that ability, in that range of size and speed and ability. And I wasn't a bad football player. I just realized how talented and how capable some guys were, and why they were going to be Division I and that kind of thing, and why I was going to be something else. You mentioned your dad was a longtime coach at James River. You played at James River. You're coaching at James River now. Take me through Buchanan for people who've never been there before. It's across the mountain from Lynchburg. You go across the Peaks of Otter, and there's Buchanan. What do I make it similar to over on 29? It's similar to Lovingston. It's not as big as Alta Vista. Buchanan and Rustburg aren't that different. They're similar, and I compare James River as a little smaller. The James River that I grew up in was a smaller version of the Rustburg that I coached at 8 years ago. They were similar places.
You bring up a good point on that. You coached at places that were similar. Did that maybe, I don't want to say make you more comfortable, but did it make you more comfortable that, hey, these towns are kind of like the town I'm used to?
Probably without consciously making that decision. I'm sure that coaching at Allegheny and coaching at Rustburg and coaching at Perry McClure and coaching at Nelson and now back at James River, that at some level they're similar to what I knew as a 15-year-old.
I'm going to ask you a question. I ask that you not hang up on me because I don't mean it to be insulting at all. But when you talked about when you got to other places and you saw that these other people do like a cone drill or whatever, you were kind of like, wow. Did you maybe come from a feeling of big fish in a smaller pond being from Buchanan, or how do you think that played out, if that makes sense?
Yeah, I learned that I was that. Yeah, exactly. I learned. Yeah, now I'm a teeny tiny fish in a great big pond, and I realized that as my football experiences grew from age 17 to age 23, yeah, I realized how quick, how powerful, how big some people are. That kids that grow up in a 450 uh, kid rural high school don't always learn. It's not that there aren't some great athletes and great football players in smaller high schools, but yet, generally the best football is played by the schools with the most kids. It takes more from each kid to progress through that program. And so yeah, I mean, when I got down to Fork Union, and all of a sudden there were kids from Pennsylvania and South Carolina and uh, North Carolina and all over Virginia. You just pick from such a bigger pool. Does that make sense?
Absolutely, absolutely. I have talked to one of the other natives of Buchanan, Mr. Jeremy Sink, who's the athletic director at Jefferson Forest now,
Right.
and Sink makes it out to be like, I shouldn't say makes it out because I would say that he's telling a fib, even though his nose did not grow like Pinocchio. But one thing he makes it out to be is you had to work hard to live in Buchanan, James River, because the coaches were going to expect hard work out of you too. Is that an accurate statement? Hard work comes from Buchanan.
I think that's very fair. I think that what these kids do well, and I just got done talking to them about this, is that they're coachable, they work hard, and they execute well. If there's a superpower that James River football players historically have had, it's that they execute well, and they're coachable, um, and they work pretty hard. And so that's kind of what we got to hang our hat on. And I imagine that's what Jeremy was referencing too.
When you have noticed from when you played and then when you started coaching to now, is hard work desired as much from younger people?
Yeah, I think we probably beat up kids a little bit. You just got to set a course, and find a way to reach them, and and celebrate their successes, and tell them when it's not good enough. You got to find a way to reach them and celebrate them, and scold them when it's necessary. But they want to work, and they want to get better, and they want to feel good about themselves. So I don't think that's changed with kids now. Yeah, they come to you not quite as toughened up as maybe they did 30 years ago. I had ridden a bike every day of my life. I had done certain things that made an activity like football a little bit more normal for me. Obviously sitting on a couch playing video games and then football practice is a shock, or anything that you do in football. And 35, 40 years ago, we didn't have as much of that. But other than that, you you get them working, you get them toughened up and in shape, and kids want to succeed and they want to do well.
I think the thing that it to me is a big difference from back 35 to 40 years ago to now is a lot of times back in the day, as I like to say, a kid could have gotten his bell wrong and that's what it was called. Nowadays, I think that the advancements in medicine are much more serious. How much of that is a good thing that we're not just sending out kids when they quote unquote got their bell wrong? Because back then, if you came out, you're afraid of losing your spot.
Yeah, no, it's a good thing. I mean, the fact that we have more medical technology, the fact that we do a better job of treating our kids, and understanding, head and neck injuries, and all that's a good thing. I think for without a doubt, we ask a whole lot more out of kids than what was asked. And I'm not trying to beat up anybody from
Right.
40 years ago. I'm just saying that what kids have to do generally in a high school football program today is pretty significant. And so it's, the fact that we do have better technology and we put them in better equipment and everything is, 40 years ahead a little bit. That's a good thing.
How many concussions do you think you played with?
Oh, I can remember when bells and whistles went off and when I got hit in the side of the head. I think we probably all, got rocked around in there. And I don't even hardly know that I had ever heard the term concussion. I can tell you there was a linebacker at Marshall that felt like running into a wall. I can tell you that a young man that I played with at VMI who was from EC Glass, a guy by the name of Mike Rogers, when you'd run into Mike in practice, felt like running into a concrete wall. Yeah, I mean, I think we probably all did, but I don't know that we knew what it was. I mean, we got tape sitting on a cooler here at James River, and yeah, it's a different world. But yeah, we probably all did.
Yeah, I mean, it's like we talked about. Those things were normal.
Yep.
Back then.
Yep.
We're back then. I'm gonna ask you to talk to me about someone that you coach, and he gives you a lot of credit. What type of coach and man do you think Dustin Russell will be?
I think tremendous. I think Dustin's a fine individual. I think he married an unbelievable young lady. I didn't teach two sharper kids at Allegheny than Dustin and Megan, and I've often teased Dustin that if there was one sharper than him that I taught, it was his wife Megan. So I mean, he's a great young man, and I think he's going to do a great job as a head coach. He told me in 8th grade that he wanted to be a coach, and I don't know that I completely locked in on it at that time, but somewhere over the next year or so, he told me again, and I did start to lock on it at that time. So when he graduated from high school, I kept him close with us in our summer work. He played down at Averett, and he'd do his summer workouts and all that stuff, and then I kept him close with us. He hung out in the weight room with us. He always helped me coach offensive line in the summer and at the camps and things like that we'd go to. And then when he graduated from Averett, I was able to bring him back, and then I was able to take him to Russburg. And then, a number of years later, I went a different way. But no, I think Dustin's he's loved football since he was a little kid. He's desired to be a coach. He played college football so that his football experiences would be broadened and deepened, and then he spent 10 years as an assistant to Bert and myself, and then the one time he got a chance, he went out there and won 7 games. So I think Dustin's he'll roll. He'll do a good job.
When a kid says that they want to coach, or when a kid plays in college and they come back for workouts, do they get held to a higher standard by you?
Oh yeah, I mean he, like I said, he told me twice that he wanted to be a coach, and from that moment on, I was encouraging Dustin to find a home in college where he could see football from a different perspective and learn more about it. And, you can survive in high school liking football. You better love football when you play college football. So I pushed him towards college football so that he would get more experience and a better understanding. And yeah, I mean, and then like I said, I knew he wanted to coach, so I pushed him, and he was kind of my guy for a long time. I miss having him around now.
Being around the game for as long as you've been as a player and as a coach and everything, have you seen people fall out of love with football?
Oh yeah, oh no question.
What does it look like?
Because it just gets the work, the commitment, the day in day out grind. Football is long, and so you see kids at different stages just decide that maybe the grind's not worth it anymore. Maybe the the work that we got to do every day isn't worth it anymore. Maybe all those things that make football tough, just they get something else they'd rather do. And I think that's, and it kind of happens at I see it like a pyramid. When I was a little kid, everybody in town played little league football, and then some of us continued to play JV football. So in between little league and middle school and JV, there was a reduction in kids. That pyramid got a little steeper. And then between JV and varsity, some kids fell off, and that pyramid got a little narrower once again. And then, at the end of your high school career, there's a teeny tiny percentage that are good enough to go play any level of college football. And that pyramid almost comes to a true point. And then, at the end of 4 or 5 years of college, there's an unbelievably small percentage that have the desire or the ability to keep progressing at that point. So I always, I see it like a pyramid. At each level, kids fall off because it requires more of them at each level.
Yeah, and when you were sitting there talking, I was thinking, at some point, I don't want to say does it fall off, but does football become less of a priority? Because a lot of people have, families, kids, wife, or whatever, and for a moment, maybe 6 months to a year to even longer, does football, decrease because, hey, I want to see my kids grow up and I can't put as much time into the game as I used to, type of thing.
No, I think certainly. I laughed with our kids this morning. I'm 53 and I'm still choosing to hang around a football team, and by choosing to do that, that requires, and that's a massive life commitment. And I've been very fortunate that my wife has agreed to play along with that, and 2 of my sons were able to play for me, and but yeah, and so if you kind of go back to that coaching pyramid, a lot of guys at 23 or 24 got into coaching because they hadn't had enough football. But then somewhere about 30, am I either going to stay with this, or am I going to get out of education? Am I going to go sell insurance? Am I going to do something else? When I was 27, I knew I wanted to be a head football coach. When I became a head football coach at 29, here I am 53, and I still want to do this, but life and family and all of that knocks, the same pyramid applies.
Outside of immediate family, when Jack Baker's watching football on Saturday or Sunday, who was his idol that he wanted to be, or who did he really like, whether growing up or even now?
Oh, when I was a little kid, I wanted to be a running back, and Herschel Walker was the guy.
Okay.
He came to CMT in Roanoke probably when I was 10 or 12, and I thought he was I couldn't imagine a better athlete and a better running back. And I'd read a book about him when I was about that age. Man, I thought he was unreal.
And you talk about a person that looked like they were chiseled from the Greek gods.
A Greek god, no question.
I mean, I've often looked at Herschel Walker and Jack Baker, and I can't tell the difference.
I can.
Talk about what stood out about Herschel that made you want to be like him.
Oh, as a little kid, like I said, I'd been around football coaches, and the football coaches I'd been around were I formation football coaches, and Herschel Walker was an I formation tailback in Georgia. He was just a freak. There was I guess at some point there was a game in there against Tennessee where he ran over Bill Bates was a safety for Tennessee that ended up playing safety for the Cowboys many moons ago. And anyway, Herschel Walker just did things on the football field and as a track sprinter, which was another thing that always impressed me, that I didn't. I wanted to be a running back, and he was the best one I knew.
Were you
the best one I had heard of.
Were you a better football player or a better hurdler?
I probably had greater success hurdling. If I wouldn't have liked football, I probably should have pursued the 400 hurdles pretty hard as a 19, 20, 21-year-old. I think that was probably athletically, maybe a direction that I should have pursued a little harder. But I liked football, and when it because of injuries and a few things like that in football, it became hard to do both of them, and I didn't. I didn't hurdle much more than a year or so in college, but I liked football.
Are you?
And
Go ahead. I'm
go
sorry.
ahead. No, I liked football, but as a high school athlete, I probably had my greatest success as a hurdler.
Did you play multiple sports in high school?
Football, basketball, and ran track. Loved them all. Had great experiences in all of them.
Did you have to, pretty much? Because, I mean, James River, it's not like they got people just, sitting around doing thumb twiddling.
No, I didn't have to. I mean, it was 1988, and, in 1988, if you could run and jump and throw and, you played things. And so, football was my favorite, and it was what I always saw myself as. But, when football was over, I was very happy to go play basketball, and I was fortunate to play on some excellent basketball teams here. We were state runner-up my junior year. We played in the state tournament both my junior and senior year. We were regional champions both my junior and senior year. There was no question that basketball was the best thing in this school at that time. And so I loved basketball. And then when basketball was over, I was ready to go I couldn't wait for track because I had a lot of individual success in track. So I liked them all. And I think we kind of goofed that up a little bit. If we can find a way for a kid to work and lift and do all that stuff now, the more things our best athletes can play, the better off they're going to be, the better off we're going to be.
Keep going off that. Why are you going to encourage a kid to play basketball?
Well, I think number one, I hope that they get more than just football from me, but they should also get more than just they should being around other men are good for them. My high school basketball coach won 450 games. Took numerous teams to state tournament. Was the basketball coach here for 30 years probably. I gained a lot of sport insight, and so the people that you play for have an impact on you. You're not just training. You're not so specific. You're developing. I watch the quarterbacks that have been baseball players for me. Man, that middle infielder that turns a double play or things like that translates somehow to playing quarterback. At Allegheny, my best quarterbacks oftentimes were middle infielders, or my best receivers played baseball. Those kids up there played a lot of basketball, and that kid that can get the ball on the high block and know, do I take the short jumper here? Do I make the pass down on the low block? Do I drive around the guy? Sport specific is good, but yet we learn a lot. Physically, the change of the seasons and the change of the activity is good for the body, and it puts you around other coaches and puts you on other teams. And I think if a kid can play multiple sports, he needs to do it. Now it's 2026. At some level, we gotta keep them lifting and working them like that year round. But most schools, create that opportunity at this point. You can get 2 or 3, 4 lifts in every week and still play all the sports if you're good enough.
And I can argue too that somebody might hear different things from Ethan Humphreys than they hear from Jack Baker.
They might, but I would suspect that if one of my best receivers last year was arguably the first or second best kid on the basketball team here. One of the big kids, one of their centers, was a good defensive end for us. So, I don't think so. I think if that he'd say the same thing, that, he wants some lifting and he wants some working, and obviously he's got some off-season things he wants done with him too. But I don't think he has any problem with kids playing multiple sports.
No, and I guess my point was, if Jack Baker coaches a kid one way, Ethan Humphreys might tell, the guy who is the star on football, who maybe is maybe a third or fourth option on basketball, the kid might hear different things that'll help him from one sport. You talked about
Oh,
that middle
yes,
infielder
yes, yes,
capacity. So,
yes. Yeah, I agree with you. I mean,
yeah.
right, just the influence by other good people in the
Hmm.
building.
Hmm.
You know, kids are, what's that phrase? It takes a village
Yep.
to, and so I think that applies in a school. The more good people they're around in their activities, the better off it's going to be.
What has changed with the media coverage back from when you were playing, coaching early on till now? Because it seems like now there's a lot more. Back in the day, I guess if Friday Football Extra came to Buchanan, that was a big deal.
Yeah, that's the change right there. It's a lot more.
Yeah.
Right. When I played, we raced we raced somewhere to see Friday Football Extra, and how often did we saw James River score roll up every time, but only once in a while did James River probably get a true highlight. And there's just, so much more of it now. Yesterday I took a group of kids to Roanoke to do an interview, and there'll probably be a way that I can get at some point all of my seniors to do an interview with somebody this fall. That's one of the things I've always tried to do as a head coach, is that every senior try to figure out a way to get everybody to have a chance to get their moment in the sun. And there's enough avenues out there where that's possible. There were very few of them. 1988, here it was the Roanoke Times and Friday Football Extra.
Probably weren't doing this in 1988.
No, I mean, probably weren't doing podcasts, I know we weren't.
Nope.
Yeah.
What's the biggest misconception about Jack Baker that people don't know? I mean, I'll give you one. I wouldn't have thought of you as a hurdler.
Well, I don't laugh or smile a whole lot, so I don't think that. Sometimes I'll joke with the kids, and I don't know that they see me joking. Anyway, I like kids an awful lot.
Right.
I respect the work that kids do. I'm very happy to be a high school football coach. I don't know that I'm probably very real, and so some people sometimes see real as maybe negative, and I'm not a negative person, but I'm a very real, honest person, and so maybe if there was anything I would like to tell people about myself, is that I hear what you have to say, and I reflect on what you have to say, and I think about what you have to say, but if I can help you, I want to help you, and if I can't, I'll let you know, and that's the real honest part about me.
Do you think sometimes you have to be the not putting on the jokey joke or real happy face, because old school football coaches didn't really do that?
No, but I think we all got to find who we are as
Right.
individuals, and the kids have to know when are we having a good time, and when do we mean business, and when's it time to settle down and go to work. And I think the more you're around your kids, the more they realize that. And so, I mean, old school there's an image of an old school football coach that we have, and sometimes that image is right. Football coaches aren't nearly as gruff and as ornery and as the idea of old school football coach is. I mean, I knew my football coaches from a perspective of knowing them as my dad's friends, and also from the perspective of knowing them as my coach. And my dad made sure that I knew where the line was. I didn't hang out in the coach's office. I didn't. There was I don't know. I'm searching right here, but yeah, I think sometimes we try to make somebody into an old school football coach, and he's really a pretty likable guy.
I was going to say, well, that kind of brings into my next question a little bit. Is there anybody has a player or has a coach that you were, I don't want to say afraid of, but once you met them, man, they're a really nice dude. Is there one that sticks out to you like that?
Oh shoot! I mean, most of the head coaches I played for. I
Right.
mean, the last place I wanted to go as a player was back into the corner office, and we were. Here's a unique little story. I played at VMI for two head coaches. The second one being Bill Stewart, uh, and I'm telling you, the last thing I wanted to do was get called back to Bill Stewart's corner office or get singled out by him on the practice field. But then when I was coaching at VMI, we were up at West Virginia at spring practice one time, and you know it was Coach Stewart was there at the time, and I'll never forget walking off the field one evening up there at West Virginia, and Coach Stu coming over and putting his arm around me, and he said, they ought to get after me for some of the things I did with you guys. He said, I'm the saint up here, aren't I? And he laughed and grinned, and I said, don't worry, Coach, I got it. You just wanted us to, you're just trying to make us as good as we could be. You had a job to do, and I respected you for it. But it's funny to sit here and see you in a different light. Coach Schumann at Fort Union was the same way. I mean, the first 2 or 3 weeks I was down there at Fort Union, I was totally in awe of Coach Schumann, and I just couldn't imagine there being anybody in the world that could do more than he could. But in the years since, I've oftentimes seen a different side of Coach Schumann, and so yeah, that's neat.
Yeah, it's funny because when growing up watching Friday Football Extra, you see all the Roanoke coaches that you don't see, for me at least, like a Joel Hicks, a Jim Hickam, a Willis White, and they've got the shorts that are pretty much like, between the knees and between the waist, and you look like that must be the scariest person in America. But when you meet them,
Well,
it seems like they're normal. You know what I'm saying?
yep, yep. And I'll tell you, I had another perspective. I saw guys like Coach Hickam and Coach White and Coach Highfield. I saw those guys. I never played for them and didn't play in their school, but as a youngster growing up, knew that they were well-respected, successful head coaches in my larger area, and so yeah, there's something that comes along with that. But then as an assistant at VMI, I got to recruit in their buildings, and I got to see each one of them once again in a little bit different light, and they were all men that I respected and I think would have liked playing for. I would have been nervous around them as a 16-year-old, but as a 25-year-old, I enjoyed sitting in their office and hearing their thoughts on football and those kind of things. So, yeah, there's lots of perspectives, and these guys are all knowledgeable, experienced, super coaches, and they have an impact on kids' lives. But seldom have I ever come across a coach that didn't really like kids. He's got a job to do.
Right.
The term coach it comes from stagecoach, and a stagecoach got you from one point to the next. And so that's what a coach does in the life of a kid. It tries to help them get from one point to the next. And that's not always easy work. And so sometimes it's loud and demanding and all that. But all these guys I've known and had a chance to sit down and talk with and all that were good people that I enjoyed the time with as well.
Two final quick questions. One about VMI. I remember talking to Mark Hanks, who was a basketball coach around here and coached at VMI, and he said
Yep.
he would recruit and say, kids would say, Coach, I'd love to come, but can you do something about that M? And then I've talked to John Poindexter, who's on Coach Russell's staff at Brookville, and he said, I could win over any parent. Easy. The kids were the hardest part when I was helping coach at VMI. I'm going to take it. You could probably win over the parents easy when you're coaching at VMI. The kids a little bit harder sell.
Oh, no question. I mean, I think both those guys were correct in their assessment. I think the key to keeping kids around VMI is you got to find ones that are wired that way. You got to find ones that see the benefit of this, and pretty quickly, is a kid gonna make it or not?
Right.
And then go hard after the ones that can do the things on the football field that you need done, but you feel good about. That they also see the value of an education, and they also see the value of a little discipline and structure in your life, and they come in all different shapes and sizes. I mean, when I first worked at VMI, I thought there was one kind of kid that I needed to recruit, and then later on, I thought there was maybe a different kind. And what I realized was that there was no stereotype, and that they came in all different shapes and sizes, and if I identified what they needed to do on the football field, and then something about my time with them jumped out at me that, hey, this kid's got what it takes for VMI, but it looked different every time.
What was your area when you were to recruit at when you were coaching at VMI?
I pretty much had the entire western part of Virginia by the time I from Bristol to Winchester, I could do about what I wanted to do in West Virginia. So, I had a fairly large area, and hoped to find a way to get 2 or 3, 4 kids to VMI out of that area every fall.
How rewarding was it to get that first kid that maybe wasn't quote unquote VMI like, but you got him? I mean, how hard was that? You kind of talked about it, but how hard was that to get that non-VMI kid to VMI?
I think that's a hard thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, to me it was about seeing something that a young man did on film,
right?
That I knew translated into what we were, and then getting him to understand that this is a good place. It's not always an easy place, but it's a good place, and it'll pay dividends for me the rest of my life. So yeah, it's very rewarding to stumble across kids that can play football, but also recognize that this is a good place and it will do good things for me, but it's going to require a lot out of me. And if I'm willing to make that sacrifice, it's my life will be better on down the road.
I don't want to use the word easy, but I've got to imagine easier to recruit then, just because, I mean, nowadays I can't see how people can recruit because everybody's on some type of TV or broadcast platform. So
I think,
go ahead.
Got to be tough. I mean, yeah, it's certainly, I would imagine the recruiting I did at VMI in 25 years ago is different, because I used to always say this. You hear all the old timers at VMI say, well, back in the day, well, if you go back in the 1950s, there was no air conditioning, and every kid wore a tie to dinner. And so in the 1980s, the decision that I made to go to VMI was more against my culture. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Well, I mean, the fact that there was no air conditioning, and you got to do certain things, and that's done nothing but, the decision that kids make today to go live that lifestyle is, I would say, is even harder than the one that I made 35 years ago to go live that lifestyle. So I got a lot of respect for any kid that says, that's what I want to do. I'm going to make it happen for 3 or 4 or 5 years, and I'm going to play football. And then you throw in all the other things today. If you develop, you can go get paid somewhere. You can transfer, and that's not how it was when I played or when I coached there. So I imagine you really got to do a tremendous job of identifying those kids that got what it takes to hang in there and do that. It's a neat place.
At anywhere, even at VMI, if you can keep one person now somewhere for 4 years in college, congratulations.
Almost unheard of, isn't it?
I mean, I would never believe it. Final question. I hope this has not been like, a trip to the dentist so painful for you that you'll do it again.
No, it's been good.
I promise I won't bother you during season, because there's bigger fish to fry at that point. You're at a youth football game or whatever, and a dad comes up to you and says, hey, little Johnny really wants a future in football. Where should I have him? What should I have him do, or where should I have him look to play at? What's your advice to 7 or 8 year old parent of what they should do?
God didn't make many Division I football players. If your goal is to play more football, you need to participate. I've already said that multiple sports are a good thing, but you need to participate. You need to work. You need to start to apply. The best athletes, there's a level of discipline that they have in their life, that they make good decisions and they make decisions that are going to benefit them down the road. But God didn't make a whole lot of Division I football players. So, do your best, work your hardest, participate to the fullest, and then figure out where is the right next spot for me. There's lots of next level football, and nobody does all the things that football requires so that they can just practice on Tuesday and Wednesday nights. Kids want to play. So get involved, participate, improve, and then make a decision on your future, where I'm going to be the happiest, where I might get the most playing time, who's going to develop me the most, and with the recognition that there's only so many that are that big time football player, but yet there's a lot of football that kids can play out there.
Just heard from Jack Baker. I would definitely say he's an old school guy, but I think the thing that is more underrated about Jack Baker than he gets credit for is Jack Baker is a very personable guy, and he's very funny, and he's very down to earth. You don't find many guys like Jack Baker that'll say, call me whenever and I'll talk to you about whatever. And let's not forget one thing Jack Baker does really well. He molds young men and he wins football games. And by the way, Jack Baker was a heck of a hurdler in high school too. You heard that, him talk about that and more. You'll hear more Jack Baker. You'll hear more everybody right here on the Sports Buffet podcast. This has been Bob Alvis.